What's good? It's your boy Fred. Welcome again to the CONVOS podcast with Fred T. Williams. So excited that you're here for yet another episode. I hope you enjoyed the pop-up episode, the previous episode that we just did regarding grief, facing grief. That was very impromptu. Um, and again, I hope that it helped. It almost ties into what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about same cycle again. We're breaking cycles. We're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with cycles. And so, I want to start it differently. I want to start it with this thought, Romans 12 and 2. Romans 12 and 2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. I want to stop right there. Um, and I think in today's conversation, we're going to deal with that thing that keeps these cycles repeating. Because some of you are listening right now, and you're in the middle of a cycle. You're trying to figure out how to change things, how to get different results, how to get a different outcome than you have been getting. And so I want to deal with that on today. Have you ever looked up and just kind of realized that you were dealing with the same problem? Have you? Maybe that's you right now. Different person, same heartbreak. Different relationship, same disappointment. Different opportunity, same financial struggle. Different year, very same frustration. Different environment, etc. That's you, and you're dealing with that. I have a question. At what point do you ever, in the midst of all of that, stop and ask, why does this keep happening? And not ask it in a way that you are now asking from a victim mentality, like life is happening to you, like the things that are happening are completely beyond your control. When have you ever just stopped and had a moment and just stepped back from your life and kind of like looked at it like it was a movie on the screen and said, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Why is this happening? What's going on? Why does this keep? I was just here. I was just at this place. And before I want to deal with this because I don't want you to take away from this that we're pointing the finger at someone else. I think it's time now for us to take a look at ourselves and be honest with what we see, what we uh, don't want to address that needs to be addressed, and not point the fingers and blame anyone else. Um, Not blame a circumstance. Um, Definitely not blame the devil, because you know that's always it. It's either other people, it's the circumstances, or it's the devil is just busy in my life. The devil is just so busy. He always messing with stuff. Is he really though? Is he really though? Like, is it really? Is it really the devil? Is he really? Satan, big red man, pitchfork horns? How they give it to us on TV? Is it really him that's running through our life, causing all this mischief, causing all this mayhem? Is it really him? Have we ever stopped and looked in the mirror? That's a Selah moment. That just means to pause, to soak it in, to meditate on what was just said. Because everything isn't about other people, everything isn't about circumstances, everything isn't about the devil. Sometimes it's us. And so it's not necessarily the things that are happening around us. That's the issue. It's the things that's happening through us. That's the issue. The actions that we're committing, the thoughts that we're moving in, are operating off of, how we function and how we flow. That could very well be the issue, the thing that's causing the repeated cycles in our life. So I want to deal with this in kind of different phases. The first phase I want to deal with the reality that sometimes history repeats itself. And so one of the greatest lies that people tell themselves, they repeat this over and over, is that this time will be different without changing anything. Um, this job is going to be different, but you still wake up late. You still show up late. You still don't do the work that you're assigned to do. You still got a problem with everybody that you work with. You still don't want to follow the instructions of your boss. And those were all of the issues that you complained about at your last job. It was always them. It was always they didn't understand. They didn't appreciate you. They didn't show your value. They didn't see your value. You didn't have no worth to them people. You was doing this. You was doing that, but you never changed. And so you got a new job, but you're still the exact same employee that you were at the old job, and you expect something to happen different at this new job. Think about that. We expect different outcomes while maintaining the exact same mindset that we had before. The same habits, the same decisions, yeah, the same standards, the same emotional reactions, same thing. But we're always wanting something different. And we got the audacity to be shocked when things don't change. Now that's crazy. That's absolutely absurd. So that's like planting the same seed every year, but expecting something else to grow. If I plant apples, I am not looking for broccoli to grow. But that's what we do when we keep the same mindsets and move seasons, move environments, move relationships, but we stayed exactly the same. It's literally like planting apple seeds while and waiting on a broccoli harvest. Doesn't make sense. You're not going to get, it's not going to happen. And so exhaustion comes, not because life is hard, but the exhaustion comes because you've been running in circles. You've been running in circles. You're busy, but you're not progressing. You're moving, but you're not advancing. And it seems like as active as you are, there's no real transformation. And so the same destination is where you always end up at. The same thing. You're just wearing different clothes, but you're at the same destination. You may be in a different city, but you're at the same mental, emotional, spiritual destination. You may be in a different relationship, but you're still at the same destination. Every cycle starts with potential. It starts with potential, but eventually it ends in the same place. And it's not because God failed. It's not because the opportunity failed. Watch this. It's not because everyone else has failed. It's because the cycle was never broken. So let's look at patterns. Let's look at patterns. Patterns reveal what people refuse to acknowledge. Let's deal with that. So one failed relationship can happen. Two failed relationships can happen. Oh, but if every relationship ends the same way, that's a pattern. One bad business deal, it can happen. But if every single partnership ends the same way and it just crashes, that's a pattern. One toxic friendship. But if toxicity follows you in every connection, that's a pattern. Patterns are clues. If your whole life story is everybody done always did me wrong, okay, let's examine that. Let's examine what's the common denominator with all of these situations, all of these different scenarios with people. It's you. You're the common denominator. So you might be the issue. Not saying you've done something wrong. Maybe there was a standard that wasn't set. Maybe there's something that you allowed. Maybe there's a pattern that's in place that's allowing these things, these unhealthy cycles, these unproductive cycles to continue to repeat themselves in your life. Patterns expose what's happening beneath the surface. Okay. And what most people call bad luck is often unaddressed behavior. It's not luck. It's unaddressed behavior. So I got a difficult question for you. Here's a difficult question. Here it is. If I removed every person from your story, would the same struggle still exist? If I removed every single person from your story, would you have the same issues? Because a lot of times, guess what we do? We end up changing people when we should be changing ourselves. Guess what else we do? We change jobs when we should be changing our habits. What else do? We change churches. Yep, we do that too. When we should be changing our attitudes. And sometimes we're changing environments when God is literally trying to change us. And so you've got to be careful even when you're dealing with that and when you're addressing things, you have to always do that self inventory and look and say, hey, how have I contributed to this situation? How have I contributed to these circumstances? How have I contributed to these outcomes? No, everybody seriously may not be out to get you. It could be you and what you are allowing, what you're releasing, what you're putting out there, how you're moving, because you can provoke a set of actions. All right, let's say everybody always want to fight you. Why do they want to fight you? Why does everybody want to fight you? I had this real life scenario. Somebody told me once, everybody always want to fight me. Okay, let's unpack that. Let's unpack that because it's pretty dramatic. Because this person was a well traveled person, and they were like, everybody always wants to fight me. Okay, let's dig into that. Why? And in talking with this person, we've had conversations before about, how you talk to people, and let's just say, for lack of better words, you know, sometimes, they make you want to chin check them, you know, because of how they talk to you. And it's not, oh, I know you mean well by it. It's literally an air in how they approach things in communicating with people. Um, and everybody want to fight them because they just say whatever. Just say whatever and talk however to people. No love, no sincerity, no respect. And that's what it is. The conversation lacked respect. And so as a result, it provoked anger in the listener. And the listener was ready to fight. And so the issue wasn't the other people wanting to fight. That person may could deal with whatever they want to within themselves, but you cannot ignore the glaring reality of the common denominator in all of those situations. The individual whom they wanted to fight. Why do they want to fight you? It's because of how you're talking to people. If you talk reckless, and so that's just something real simple. Now, if you take that even deeper and you examine your contribution to the patterns in your life, what are you doing? How are you showing up? Who are you showing up as in your life? Why? So let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. So cycles are not random. They are not random. They aren't random at all. All right. Every cycle has a root. Okay. I want you to lean in for this. Most unhealthy patterns stem from unconscious survival mechanisms. Okay. I'm going to say that again. Most unhealthy patterns in people stem from unconscious survival mechanisms. That's childhood conditioning, unresolved trauma, attachment styles, and learned coping mechanisms. All right, so let's walk through these real quick. Let's walk through these real quick, because I want you to get it, and I want you to be able to take away from this episode, this conversation that we're having. I want you to be able to take away something that you can go back and look at and say, okay, hey, let me dig into this, because I think I find some truth in this. So, childhood conditioning, early environments shape your baseline for normal. Children that grow up in households where everybody's always yelling and screaming and fussing, they grow up to be adults that's always yelling and screaming and fussing. Um, if you grow up in an environment where your emotional needs are ignored or love felt inconsistent, your brain adapts to that. Okay. Your brain adapts to that. You learn to suppress your feelings, or you learn to people please simply to be accepted and safe. So here are the patterns that come from that: people pleasing, perfectionism, or over independence. And that's all from the childhood conditioning of growing up in an environment where emotional needs were ignored or love felt inconsistent. And so these things, it's not cookie cutter like, okay, I grew up, so this is going to be my pattern. No, it can be either one of those, or it can be all of those. And they can adjust accordingly based on the situation, based on the trigger, based on what's happening. Then you have unresolved trauma. Trauma forces the nervous system into a conscious state of hypervigilance. And so when faced with the same stressors of the past, you may unconsciously default to automatic defensive responses. Here's the pattern for that: shutting down emotionally, pushing people away, or the inability to rest. That's serious, huh? You thinking about that? You're listening right now. You're probably saying, golly, that's me. That's me. Next is attachment styles. Your earliest emotional bonds, or lack thereof, dictate how you form connections later in life. And so these styles define how you process intimacy and handle the fear of abandonment. Here are the patterns that result from that: anxious attachment, the need for consistent reassurance, or avoidant attachment, fear of deep closeness and vulnerability. So either you are clingy, extremely clingy, or you're extremely closed off. Yeah. And then you've got learned coping mechanisms. These are behaviors adopted to manage stress and mask emotional pain. While they provide instant relief or protection in the short term, they stunt emotional growth and damage relationships over time. Here are the resulting patterns: defensiveness, stonewalling, avoidance, or turning to external habits for validation. And if you're listening, all of these things have the potential to ruin moments, ruin opportunities, ruin relationships, ruin doors that God may be wanting to open for you, ruin um the place that you're in right now because you're showing up with this pattern that's really destructive to you and your advancement. And it causes people to respond. See, sometimes people are not responding to you because um, that's just how they feel about you. They're responding to you because of how you are moving with the patterns that are in place that you have not yet dealt with. And so understanding that these ingrained reactions are actually survival adaptations rather than personal failures is one of the first steps towards growth. That I'm defensive. That don't mean I failed at being close to somebody. Nobody ever be close to me. I don't know how to accept criticism. I'm just defensive. I always jump defensive. But you can grow from that if you recognize that's what it is. I'm closed off. I don't know how to accept or receive love. You can grow from that if you really want to, if you really, really want to. I'm people pleasing. And I've hit this point in my life where I'm just at the wits end of my exhaustion limit. I have no more left in me. I'm exhausted. Forget everybody. I ain't people pleasing no more. You can grow from that. So it's not a failure. It's not a failure. So don't write your card or stamp your identification card as whatever your pattern is. You can break free from that pattern and you can literally have the life that God designed for you. And so some more ways: unhealed wounds, pain. This has to do a lot with pain. Pain teaches us lessons. Growing up, you hear the story oftentimes. A lot of adults use the story. If I told my child, you touch the stove, don't touch the stove because the stove is hot. You touch the stove, you realize it's hot. You never touch the stove again. That pain taught you not to do something. Oftentimes, people find themselves trapped in situations because pain taught them the wrong thing. Okay, you got hurt, so now you don't trust. Pain taught you that. Pain taught you that trusting, or you took the lesson that pain was teaching you. You took it as trusting now equals hurt. So now you don't trust. You got betrayed. So now you push people away. You got rejected. So now you become desperate for approval. Pain can be a teacher, but pain should never become your identity. And when you get to the place that you learn to address situations based on the situations and see if it connects to a pattern in your life. If you're always in a situation where you're getting hurt and your trust is broken, the pattern that you need to address is: why are you giving everyone your trust so easily? How is trust earned with you? How is trust proven with you? What is the redemptive process that you have in place in your life for trust to be restored? Now that's that last one is one we don't deal with. We never really deal with that. We never deal with the restoration of trust. Once you break my trust, it's over. Oh my God, what if God dealt with us like that? What if God said, once you broke my trust, it's a wrap. Just you out. Just burn forever. What if he did that? Like, real talk. But we once you burn my trust, I'm just done with you. I'm done with you. I can't ever get no. You have to even have in your life for certain relationships a redemptive process to trust. What is the redemptive process for trust in your life? Yeah, that's different. We might have to talk about that even more on a later episode. Unhealthy beliefs. Some people actually in their mind believe that everyone leaves. Nobody can be trusted. Nothing ever works for me. I'll never be enough. And their actions, the patterns, those beliefs start influencing their decisions. And a lot of times they subconsciously self-sabotage situations. I'm guilty of that. Fear. Fear creates cycles. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of being alone, the fear of success. Fear will keep you trapped in what's familiar even when familiar is unhealthy. Some people stay in unhealthy environments where they have no purpose. There's not even an upside, but you are just afraid. You're afraid either of leaving. You're afraid of change. You're afraid of the unknown. And I want to parenthetically insert this here, even when it comes to, because unfortunately, that's something that we see a lot in the church world when it comes to abusive and manipulative leadership. And people like to use scripture out of context. And yep, I'm going to be the one to say it. You ain't got to like me. I really don't care. People use scripture out of context when they talk about David and Saul. That does not apply to everyone. And that was not God giving a blueprint for how you deal in those situations. You have to remember that David was anointed to be king. Saul was the king that God rejected. David was Saul's replacement. You might not be replacing nobody in nothing. So the first thing that you got to have is an understanding and clarity on why you are where you are. Okay? And if you're in a toxic environment, church, relationship, family, whatever, address the toxicity. If you cannot address the toxicity, if there's no means of communication to deal with it, then that means you have to adjust accordingly. Yep, I'm saying it. I am saying it. If you are at a church and it is toxic, leave. Yes, I said it. Yes, leave. God is not going to kill you. You will not be damned to hell. You will not die a premature death. If you are in a church and it is toxic, the leadership is toxic, everything is leave. 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 Run, Forrest. Run. Okay? Run. For real. For real. For real. Another one is lack of self-awareness. So you can't change what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't change what you refuse to acknowledge. There is nothing more irritating than talking to a person who always thinks they're right and cannot learn anything and will flip a conversation to flow with how, yeah, they were right. And yeah, I said, no, stop. Self-awareness. We have to be cognizant of ourselves. Number one, knowing that we don't know everything. And because we don't know everything, we should always, no matter how old you are, no matter how degreed you are, we should always remain teachable. Because the moment you get to a place where you are no longer self-aware, you cause patterns, toxic patterns to come and emerge in your life, and things start happening. You like try to figure out how that happened. You're not aware. You're not aware of yourself, because even the idea that you are never wrong, it's birthed from something deeper, and you got to get to the root of that. Many people are experts at analyzing everybody else, but they never look in the mirror. They never look in the mirror. I got a word for you. When was the last time you had a word for yourself? Preacher, prophet, whatever you are. I got a word for you. No, speak over yourself. Encourage yourself. What do you know about you? Too much. Romans 12:2. It says, do not be conformed to this age. Christian Standard Bible. It says, do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Check this out. Paul did not say transformation happens when your circumstances change. Paul said transformation happens when you change your mind. When your mind changes, transformation occurs. So what does that mean? How are we approaching that? Perspective is everything. So most people want new results, but God wants a renewed mind. Okay? I can't change what I get unless I change what I give. I can't change what I see until I change how I'm looking at things. My perspective, my mindset has to shift. It has to shift, because a renewed mind produces a renewed life. So you can't think like the old version of you and expect to become the new version of you. No, you cannot do it. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. You can't keep old thinking and expect new outcomes. It's not going to happen. Transformation always begins internally before it manifests externally. I've got to change the way I think about myself. I've got to change the way I see myself. I have to change the way I approach thoughts of myself. And I know we live in a world full of pat yourself on the back and praise yourself. But sometimes you need to look in the mirror and you need to tell yourself, and you need to be honest. Let's say you're struggling with lying. Just look at yourself in the mirror and say, you lie too much. And change your mentality to say, you know what? I'm going to practice telling the truth. I'm going to practice being truthful. You deceitful. Fix that. You're the untrustworthy friend. Fix that. Be honest. Not no, I'm the best friend ever. No. Let's deal with that underlying motive of why you keep showing up for your friends. You keep showing up for your friends, and every time your friend needs something, you're there. But why are you there? It's not because you're doing it out of the pureness of heart. And I'm not talking to those who are. I'm talking to those who have built a platform of silent pride, a platform that a false platform to make themselves believe they are better than they are, because they're avoiding the truth of, here is the root reason to why you keep showing up. You keep showing up because you're seeking validation. That's a pattern. That's unhealthy, and you need to deal with that. Because otherwise, what'll happen is, if that friend forgets to thank you, or if something happens or anything happens, now you feel extremely rejected because you banked your identity on showing up for other people so that you can get a thank you, a hug, a warm fuzzy. And when you don't get it, now your whole world is crushed. Everybody's wrong. Everybody fake. Don't nobody love you and all of this stuff. No, you wrap your identity up in something false. So you have to deal with it. Patterns. Patterns. There's a cost always associated with staying the same. There's a cost always associated with staying the same. Always, always, always. Because cycles are expensive. Cycles are extremely expensive. So let's look at the cost. And we're not just talking about money, not talking about financially. We're talking about emotionally. We're talking about spiritually. We're talking about mentally. We're talking about relationally. Every repeated cycle or every repeated mistake costs you something. Every repeated mistake costs you something. And so every ignored lesson, every avoided truth. So some people have spent years literally paying tuition for courses that they should have graduated from a long time ago. So you got to be honest with yourself. It's crazy to repeat the same grade for 10 years. One of the things I've committed to myself, um, and I work hard at it, and that's not repeating patterns. And if I see a unhealthy pattern repeating in my life, I instantly pull myself to the side and start checking myself and examining myself. What am I doing? How am I approaching this? Why is this producing itself in my life? And I'm very over analytical when it comes to that regarding me, because again, I can only be accountable for me. And people only do in your life, watch this, what you allow. What you allow. People only do what you allow. Okay? And so if you're in situations where you're constantly being mishandled, that's because you're allowing it. Yeah, I said it. And so you've got to be honest with yourself, and not saying I got it all together, because I don't. Oh God, I don't. I'm self-aware. I'm self-aware that Fred makes mistakes. I'm self-aware that Fred has to show up. Fred is human. Fred has to make sure Fred is showing up and putting the best version of Fred, the best and most honest version of Fred forward every single day and every single interaction. I have to. Because if I don't, what'll happen is I'll fall back into the pattern of people pleasing. I'll fall back into the pattern of going along to get along. I'll fall back into the pattern of feeling voiceless and certain things. And so you've got to be honest with yourself about whatever patterns exist in your life. You've got to be honest with yourself with even how you process emotions, how you feel, how you think. You've got to be honest. These are just convos we're having. Because what I don't want to happen is you stay the same, and it's the same lesson, different season, same issue, different year, same cycle, different face, because you put faces on your issue. However, the issue is a result of a pattern. So the pattern repeats, but the faces of the individuals that are your issue, it keeps changing. We talked about that earlier. If it's always everybody else but never you, and these are people that don't know each other, these are people that have never interacted with each other, you're in a whole different state, you're in a whole different city, you're in a whole different friend group, you're in a whole different side of town, you're in a whole different world, sphere of influence, and it's the same repetitive it's not them, it's you. And we got to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves. The goal for everything this season, I want you to grow. I want you to grow. I want you to, when this season ends of the convos, this season of the convos podcast, when it ends, I want you to be so challenged that you are provoked to grow. If anything, I want you feeling some type of way, even while you listening to this right now, like, you know what? I'm finna go check myself. I'm finna go check myself. I gotta check. I gotta check and see what patterns are existing in my life. I gotta check and see um, these cycles that are repeating. I gotta check and see. I've been pointing the finger at everybody else and saying they didn't do this and they didn't do that. I need to examine me. I need to examine why it's existing. I need to examine why I'm facing something, the same thing over and over and over again. I need to examine that. I need to examine that. So here it is, because I'm not going to just leave you here with the open wound of, oh my God, I got a pattern in my life and I don't know what to do. Here it is. We talked about the pattern. We talked about what causes it. We've given language to it. So now let's lay out some actual practical steps on how to deal with it. Number one, identify the pattern. That's the first thing that you got to do. You have to identify the pattern. Ask yourself this question: what keeps happening? What keeps happening? Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. What keeps happening? If betrayal keeps happening, uh-oh. And I believe the Bible when the Bible says in Romans 8 and 28, and this we know that all things work together for the good to them that love the Lord, to those who are the called according to his purpose. I believe that. However, that is not a caveat of security for unhealthy patterns repeating themselves and the consequences or the fruit of those unhealthy patterns continuing to show in your life. That is not what that scripture means. It is not a means or a license for you to stay unhealthy. And just because a part of your heart loves God, now everything has to work for your good. No, that is not what that means. You have to identify the toxicity, because otherwise you are walking around with an infection and it infects even your relationship with God. And you got to examine that. So identify the pattern. Next, you got to find your role. Yes, accountability. Ooh, scary word. Boo, accountability. Not everybody else's role, your role. What am I contributing to this pattern? There were things. So, this episode that aired before this one, um, go listen to it if you hadn't got a chance. I chose to do something different. I chose to do something different. It was impromptu. It dropped on a Friday. It was very vulnerable. It's called Facing Grief. I chose to do something different because I had a pattern in my life, an unhealthy pattern in my life that had been going on for 27 years. And so I chose to face it. So I'm not telling you something that I'm not actively doing, actively living. There is nothing worse than someone prescribing you medicine that they wouldn't dare ever take themselves. I'm not telling you something from this place of, oh, Fred has it all together. We on this journey together, man. We just trying to be everything that God called us to be. We just trying to live the life that God designed for us to live. We're just trying to allow our full life to get to give God glory. That's at least that's the journey that I'm on. And so whatever that looks like, whatever form that takes, whatever shape that takes, whatever path that takes, I'm down for it. I'm in. I'm all in, 10 toes down with it. And so I had to examine myself. Even prior to this episode, I had to say, you know what, I can't talk about same cycle again. And I'm going through the same cycle again. I'm dealing with the same thing 27 years strong on how I process grief. And even though grief is a journey and healing from grief and dealing with grief and facing grief, it shows up differently for everyone. You know whether you're dealing with it from an unhealthy place, you know whether you're dealing with it from a healthy place or not. So I had to be honest with myself and say, hey, Fred, you know what? You're not dealing with this from a healthy position. You're not dealing with it from a healthy position. So let me do something different, because normally this time of year I shut down, I isolate, I overcompensate to numb myself or distract myself from feeling what I'm feeling, thinking what I'm thinking. I do certain things. There's certain. I've created this whole system of security of survival. I got to survive this time of year. It hits me. It hits me. Mother's Day this time. The day my mom passed. Hits me. Her birthday, November 11th, it hits me Christmas time. Those 4 times a year, I am a slave. I was a slave to a certain cycle for 27 years. Slave to a certain way of thinking, slave to a certain way of processing emotions or interacting with people while internally struggling. And I chose this year to get free. So if my honesty makes some people uncomfortable, I don't care. Get uncomfortable. I don't care. I'd rather be free. I value my freedom more than I do your comfort. Oh, Jesus, that was good. And when you get to the place that you start valuing your freedom more than everyone else's comfort, because watch this, God never called you to live a life as a prisoner to a unhealthy pattern. He never called you to live a life as a prisoner, watch this, to childhood trauma, a prisoner to things that you never healed from, a prisoner to wrongly processing situations or a bad perspective. No, your life is not meant to please everybody else while you slowly decay inside. So if you being free and growing and maturing into who God has called you to be, a fully healed creature, the Bible says, I pray that you be in good health and prosper, even as your soul prospers. If the prosperity of your soul offends someone, tough. That's their fault, not yours. Heal. Please heal. Please grow. Please prosper in your soul. Your life depends on it. Your sanity depends on it. Everything connected to you depends on you showing up as who God needs you to show up as. And if the people around you are uncomfortable with your growth, uncomfortable with your evolving, that's on them. That's not on you. They'll get over it if they're supposed to be in your life. If they're not, they'll move, kick rocks. Kind of harsh. I'm just saying. Next, you have to change your response. Change your response. Change your response. So first, you identify your pattern. Second, you have to find your role. What are you doing to contribute to the unhealthy pattern? The next thing you have to do is change your response. If you always respond the same way, you'll keep producing the same result. And that's why I said, prime example, me. Listen to the last episode. I chose to change the way I was responding to this time of year. I'm not going to allow grief to push me into a place where I'm moving as a prisoner to my emotions. I refuse to. I changed up my response. I feel better. This year was different. This is the first year in 27 years processing this time of year. I was able to laugh. Watch this, and it be sincere. I was able to smile, and it wasn't a front. I was able to crack a joke, and it wasn't a deflection. First time, 27 years. Ain't that crazy? But that was my pattern. What's yours? Next, invite accountability. Oh, that's a big one right there. That's a big one. You need people who love you enough to tell you the truth, not just celebrate you, but to correct you, to challenge you, to stretch you. We've gotten to this place in society where sometimes people who correction has been abused, unfortunately. And if people spend more time correcting you and not balancing everything, like let's say, and here's what I mean by that. If they're always clapping for you, but never challenging you, something's wrong with that. And if they're always challenging you, but never celebrating you, something's wrong with that. There should be a balance. You need relationships that are balanced and healthy, okay? Where I can tell you a truth about yourself. At the same time, while acknowledging the great things about you, I can also tell you something that's going to make you even better. And I'm not going to abuse correction because oftentimes we see in circles where correction is a form of manipulation to bend people's will into doing what that other person wants them to do. That happens a lot in church, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it does. It happens a lot. And there's some people right now, you're listening to this and you haven't been to church back since you got manipulated, since you felt like the preacher was playing in your face or trying to use you or trying to con you or trying to tell you or something like this. You hadn't been back. Maybe that was the case. Or maybe it was correction coming to you that you were not ready to accept, especially if this individual sang your praises, they built you up, they encouraged you. Check the source. Check the source to determine the quality of the fruit. Okay. If a fruit comes from a plant that is, let's say it like this, you get a shipment of tomatoes and the tomatoes was from a spot where they use dangerous pesticides. The chances of all of those tomatoes being infected are a great deal. You run the risk when you gamble and say, even though this came from a field that was treated with a harmful pesticide that can destroy my body, give me cancer and all of this stuff, I'll rinse it off and I'm gonna bite it, and hopefully, what it grew in won't affect me. Or you just go get a tomato that didn't have all that stuff on it. You know what I'm saying? That didn't grow in that kind of environment. And so you have to examine the relationship. Everybody should not have the access to you. Watch this. And I'm gonna. I don't know if this is the first time you're hearing this. This may be an echo that you're hearing. I may be saying something someone else has already said to you. But you don't even have to always accept praise from everyone. We talk about correction, but even praise can be manipulative. Even praise can be deceptive. Even praise can be divisive. It is the spirit that it is done in. And so this is why you have to make sure you have people in your life who love you. And watch. And that's proven over time. That's proven with action. That's proven with presence. Okay. You're not gonna show up in my life and 2 seconds later after being in my life, now you feel like you could just talk to me, whatever, say whatever. I don't ascribe to that. Even Jesus nurtured a relationship with the disciples before he started correcting them, and he was the savior of the world. So if it was good enough for Jesus, then hey, you can follow that pattern too. So invite accountability. You got to be accountable. You got to be accountable though. You got to be accountable. Next, renew your mind daily. It's the last one. Renew your mind daily. Transformation is not an event. It is a process. Okay. It's not an event. If you show up at 5 o'clock, transformation is going to occur. No, it doesn't work like that. Daily, 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 daily. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing. It's continual, renewing. The ing makes it continual, renewing of your mind. My mind has to be renewed daily. It has to be renewed daily. I have to deal with me daily. It's a process. So that's daily scripture. That's daily reflection. That's daily obedience. That's daily growth. And I know it seems like a lot of work, but when you go to work and you put in them 40 hours and you got a set of tasks that you got to do that you have to have accomplished by the end of the week or whatever the case may be, or whatever your assignment is, you manage to get all of that done, right? And that's just for a check. Why not prioritize these things, which are actually for the benefit of your full life and how you show up in life? Watch this. And the fruit that you receive, the harvest that you're able to receive from your life. I hope I haven't bored y'all. I always have a challenge, got a challenge for you. I got a question I want you to do. I want you to really think on this. I want you to really think on this as we bring this episode to a close. I want you to think on this. What cycle are you tired of repeating? Okay? You're tired. You're tired. Same thing, different year. You keep getting old. You're getting older. You're getting older. And you've been saying the same thing for every birthday, every year in your adult life, same cycle, same unhealthy pattern. What cycle are you tired of? Not frustrated with, because frustration doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to change. Not annoyance, because annoyed doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to change. But you're tired of it and you're ready to do something different now. You're at the place where you're saying, I have to do something different. This cannot remain like this. This can't remain like this. What cycle are you ready to break? What cycle are you ready to break? So here's what I need you to do. Here's what I need you to do. We're not going to name it. We're not going to explain it. We're not going to blame it. It's not that cycle. So we're not blaming people. We're not putting faces to it. It's them. We're not naming it, giving it a name like my cycle is this person. We're not going to explain, but I know I only like this because and this, and explain it away and wake up and we're in the cycle again 2 years later, a year later, 6 months later, 3 weeks later, 2 days later, 4 hours later. We're going to actually break it. We're going to deal with this. I want you to do that. That's your homework between this episode and the next episode. I want you to really deal with what cycle you're ready to break. And if you're listening to this, I invite you to shoot us a message, drop us a line. Our socials are in the comments of all of these episodes. Drop us a line if you need help. if you need help. I normally don't do this, but I'm a certified master life coach. That means I put in the time, did the work on understanding certain things. And so that's all. I'm a life coach. I'll work with you. I'll work with you. You get a 30-minute free consultation. If you're at a place and you're saying, I need to examine my life. I need to examine this stuff. I got some cycles I need to break. I'm tired. I'm tired. And I'm ready to actually get a harvest in my life that I can actually use. Okay. I hope this episode has helped you. Um, Stay locked in. We got a few more to go. We got a few more weeks with this, and then um, I pray again that this has blessed you, that you've grown from it, that it's helping you, that it's enlightening you, that it's awakening you to certain things. It may be reminding you of certain things, but no matter what it's doing, it's stimulating growth in your life. It's stimulating um, you to be a better you and show up as a better version of yourself. It's stimulating you to get in the face of God and discover his fullness for your life and embrace him in his totality so that you can have the life that he designed for you. This is the CONVOS podcast with Francie Williams. Real conversations, real impact, real talk, lasting change. Love y'all. I'm out. See y'all next week. Peace.